Hello again. Let's continue. All right, so I'm just going to continue cleaning up and trying to organize things. I'm just going to start from the top, work my way down here, and just kind of see if anything strikes me as looking ugly or in need of fixing, like this right here. So I'm handling these three cases, but I don't have any sort of default, so I'm going to do that. And just so I'm just going to display a message box to let me know that that's not cool. It's per pixel when creating texture must be 1, 2, or 4. Right, now I'll just return. No, I can't return from there, can I? I'm just going to exit the whole program. All right, so now what else? You know what? I don't think, I think really in my texture here, all I need is this resource view. I have a strong suspicion I don't really need this at all. Let me see. All right, so when I go to create texture here, I'm gonna just make this guy go there, 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 and then I can just release that. Yeah, and everything still works the same. So yeah, I was kind of wasting space there. I didn't need that at all. I mean, the texture part. I just need the resource view, I think. I mean, it could come back and bite me in the butt, but we'll see. All right, so that's cool. Let's see, this is fine for now. I know I got a lot of spots where I'm not checking my error with my new function, like right here, for example. So let's do that. Check error, HR. All right, and here as well. And here as well. All right, sure is a lot of error checking. Everything stopped working. What happened? All right, that's not good. Let's just start undoing things. What did I change? Still? Did I break it? Okay, so what's up with that? What's going on? Go away. Huh, so when I'm checking the error here, Oh, because that's a completely different error check. I'm just dumb. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Okay. This one is valid though. There we go. All right, there we go. So, all right, what do I want to do? Also, what I want to do, I started it last time. I want to abstract out my shader. I'm going to call it shader program. I think that's a little bit more accurate. And what I need as part of my shader program, I think are a pixel shader, a vertex shader, and an input layout. All right, so let's make a function to build one of those. I'll put it above the texture TD shader program. I'll call this create shader program. All right, so what do I need? I need a file or a string to a file, or what do you call it? LPCW string. What? Actually, let me. What does a message box take in? An LPT string. I think that's probably a better option. Can I? Are they interchangeable? Probably not. But I'm gonna try taking one of these in here. So this will be for the shader file, shader text file. I'll call it that. Yeah. I don't know if I can do this though, because each shader requires so much specific stuff. Like, how do I know to build that out of some generic shader that I pass into a function? Yeah, so you know what? Okay, yeah, so I'm gonna keep this struct here, but I'm not gonna have a function that creates just a generic one, or that creates any for that matter. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to abstract out a whole renderer that will have its own shader program and input layout and its own way of doing things. So what I'm going to do, I'll make a struct called a textured mesh renderer, which is basically what my cube is a textured mesh. It's going to have a bunch of stuff, and I'm also going to make a struct that represents one of those textured meshes. So what does this need, first of all? So this needs a position. Actually, I'm going to go in order from largest to smallest. So it's going to have an orientation. It's going to have a position. What else? It's going to have a texture 2D. And so when I draw things, when I draw a mesh, I have to pass in how many indices I'm rendering, and then also this will be an offset for how many indices to skip in the buffer before you start using, before you start counting these many indices. And then this is, I feel like that's nothing I need as of now, at least. So I need a U32 for index count, and then a U32 for the index offset. So that's that. So then my textured mesh renderer will have a shader program. It will have, so that has the vertex shader layout. And it will have, what else? It will also have some buffers. What do you have? Yeah, so it's going to have a vertex buffer. And it will have an index buffer. Okay, and then since these are very specific to the textured mesh, I'm going to actually take those from here, put them inside of my textured mesh renderer. Let's just keep this in 16. So that's 32. 4, 4, 4, 4. So yeah, this is technically bigger. Okay, so let's get that. And then, so yeah, it needs these other buffers here for a constant buffer and a vertex constant buffer, and also a pixel constant buffer somewhere. I have that. There it is. All right, so got my texture mesh render with all its goodness there. So now I can make a function to build one of those guys. Let's put it here. So static textured mesh renderer. Create textured mesh renderer. And I'm not going to take in any parameters. Texture mesh render, TMR, return TMR. No, what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm going to actually do this. Because I'm only going to have one textured mesh renderer. I don't need a new one every time I want to render a textured mesh. I just use the same one I got. So I'm going to make one of those as a global variable. Texture mesh renderer. Call this textured mesh renderer. And then, so this function is just going to initialize the one and only textured mesh renderer I got. So I'm going to do that by so just basically start initializing all this stuff. Okay, so I can start with the shader stuff here. All right. Just realized I was never checking that error. I mean, it was fine anyway, but should do things proper. Yeah, so let's check error, pass in HR, could not create input layout. Ooh. That is a H result. There we go. Okay, so going on here. Vertex shader is not a member of textured mesh render. What? We talked about line 77. Is it not? Oh, because yeah, I gotta access the shader from that. So textured mesh render dot shader dot vertex shader. What else? What else complaining about? Pixel shader, yeah, the shader. And then this would also be shader, right? Okay, so now input layout, undeclared identifier, line 90. That is my textured mesh render dot shader dot input layout. And I actually don't need to set those there. All right, so now down here on 307, we don't have an idea what vertex constants are. That's fine. Need to set that. Okay, so now I need to decide how big my vertex buffer will be for the textured mesh renderer. Hmm. Let's just, I don't know, for now I'm just gonna say it's 2048 times size of F32. So I can pass in that many floats. It'll probably need to be a lot bigger than this. So temporary buffer size. Fix this. And that's going to also apply for here too. Oops. So we'll say it's 2048 times size of, what is that anyway? I don't know, this is all temporary. Okay, so then I don't need this to actually point at anything. I'm just creating an empty buffer for now. So then that would be my texture mesh render dot vertex buffer. Stride is the size of, yeah. And I don't actually need to set those yet. Okay, so no new errors here. All right, so now I need to worry about my constant buffers, which is all here. Okay. What did I just do? Okay. Wait. Yeah. Let's see how that compiles. All right, so no errors in that function. That's good. And you know, yesterday I tried to extract this out into its own struct here in my graphics utilities, and it didn't work because you can't really hard code member variables of a struct to a value, as far as I can tell. I mean, not arrays at least. So I am going to actually just take the whole set of vertices out and put them here in graphics utilities. I will put that, let's put it way up here at the top. And I will call this textured cube vertices with normals. Oh, that got all messed up, didn't it? Still ugly, but whatever. All right, and let's do the same for the indices here. It really doesn't matter what type of cube it is. The indices will be the same regardless. I'm just going to call it cube indices. I don't need to capitalize it. Why did I get capitalize? It's not to. All right. So size of textured cube vertices with normals. How do you like that variable name? That's there, and then that will be cube indices. All right. So now, what else are you complaining about? Vertex constants on line 310. Yeah, so I actually don't need to do any of this anymore, as far as I can tell. Yes, I'm gonna set the shader. Okay, so let's comment all of this out. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna call our new function, initialize textured mesh renderer. Okay, getting lots of errors. That's good, that's good. Not really, but it's good. 368 pixel constants. Yeah, so all this stuff's not valid anymore. This is all going to go away anyway. Just trying to get the errors to go away. Compiler errors. 462. Yeah. In fact, you know what? gonna get rid of all of this stuff. This is probably gonna regret this, but let's do that anyway. Okay, so what's going on now? Oh, it actually compiled. All right, error creating vertex buffer, error creating index buffer. Is that? No. Okay, so that's the one it's complaining about, and I believe it's because I can't just set that to 0. Is that why? What if I just comment that out? No. Okay, I realize this is the wrong word. I should be shader. I feel like it's got to point to something. Like it just point to null, and then that's why it's giving me grief here. So, let's see. Piece is the pointer to the initialization data. What if I don't have initialization data? An application must not realize. Okay, so on runtimes older than DirectF 3D 11.1, a call to create buffer to request a constant buffer that is larger than 4096 fails. that's constant buffer. What if I just made it smaller for fun? Nope. I don't know how to create an empty buffer, so I'm gonna cheat it. I'm going to just have it point at something and see if that fixes it. Let's just try F32 temp data, and then just have it point to the address of temp data. All right, so I like that. Cool. So let's do the same for the index data. So U16 temp index data. All right, so now you're happy. Okay, so we're making our shader. We are making an empty vertex buffer, an empty. Let's put this back to 2048. Empty index buffer. All right, so now I'm going to make a function that renders a textured mesh. So, oops, this ain't JavaScript. And then later I'll probably change this to take in an array of meshes, because more than likely I'm going to be I'm trying to take a pointer. So that way I can pass in an array, and then yeah, it's more than likely I'm going to be rendering more than just one mesh at a time. So now I can, before I render everything, now I can start setting all of this stuff. I also need to vertex shader 0, 0. It's not? Oh. You know what? I really don't like that actually. I am going to get rid of this shader program and just put everything directly in the renderer itself. Alright, so now that's going to give me a whole new flood of errors. All right. 96. Unknown override specified. What are you talking about? Oh. There we go. Stride and offset 139. I guess I need to keep track of my stride here. Yeah, so let's just put that down here. Oops. I don't remember what type of data those were. Constant units. So U32, vertex stride, and then U32, vertex offset. Okay. No. Something not working. What the heck happened? Because I messed up that shader thing? Let's just undo a bunch of stuff here. What did I change? There, now it's working. Is it because I made these buffers too? If I put these back to 2048. Okay, yeah, now it doesn't like it. So let's just make them smaller. It's about 1024. Is that cool? He cool with that? Okay, so it's this one. Okay, there, it's fine. All right, so we'll just leave it like that for now. Now I gotta go back and fix all that nonsense I was doing earlier. Okay, so back to deleting that. And delete that. Oh wait, hold on, no, I didn't want to delete that yet. I want to take that, put that here. Then I can delete that. Then I can delete that. All right, so now everywhere we got shader. I need to delete that. Looks like I already did it. $74. There we go. So move that back there. Where else? Where else? 76. Too many dots. Oh, what the heck just happened? Why does it stop running now? Okay, so now it's fine. So let me do this. Let me take all of these. Actually, let me copy those, put them here. All right. That stops. Why? So if I add too much stuff here, does it go away? What's going on? No, that's not it. Are these still too big? Yeah, seems like it. Okay. I don't know what's going on here. Do I ever know what's going on? Okay, so if I put those here, are you still happy? Yes. Okay. If I delete you, you're not going to be happy, I can tell, but maybe I can get rid of all this stuff now. Okay. Now I can make my function. And I can start setting all this stuff here. Actually, let's do the shaders first. So D3, D11, context, VS set shader. I'm going to take in the texture, mesh renderers, vertex shader, 0, 0. Cool with that? Yep. Pixel shader, PS set shader. Cool. Still compiles, still runs. That's good, that's good. All right, so now I need to set the input layout. Set all the buffers. That's where I need to take in the stride and the offset. And shader, where, oh yeah. Cool. And then I need to set the constant buffer. All right. So I can get rid of all this stuff here. Seems really small. I feel like I should be able to make more. Whatever. Did I delete too much? I think I deleted too much. Yeah, I did. There we go. Okay. Okay, so then once I do that, I'm going to just simply say the context is going to draw indexed. be the meshes index count, right? Is that what I called it? Index count, yes. Then it will have the meshes index offset and just 0 for now. There we go. All right, so now I have to create, or at least give myself the ability to create a textured mesh. Do I need this? I feel like this is extra. Okay. Yeah. All right. All right, so I'll squeeze it in here. I'm gonna make static textured mesh create textured mesh. And so what it is going to take in is a pointer to some floats for some vertices. I'll call it vertex data. And then a, should I do data side? Yeah, so I'm going to do vertex data size, and then we're going to take in a U16 pointer to the vertex, index data, and a U32 for a index data size. Okay, so every time I create a textured mesh, what I have to do is put that data into the buffer that I already created. So I need to keep track of U32, we'll call this vertex data used, and then U32 index data used. So I'm keeping track of how much data is currently filled into my buffer. And so when I'm initializing this, I want the texture mesh renderers dot vertex data used start out as 0, and the same for the index data. Cool. Okay, so when I do that, I need to update the sub resource. All right, so it's going to be the texture meshes renderers vertex buffer. Is it the address of that? I don't think so. Now I need a destination subresource. Zero base index that identifies the destination subresource. Yeah, I don't think that's important. Okay, so this is going to be important because I need to use this to offset the data from the beginning. And then, so let's look at that. I don't want the CUD to go to the box. There we go. All right, so what else goes in here? All right, so we'll put that later, and then the actual data, which is using, it's just my vertex data. And then I think this could just be 0, 0. All right. So now my box is going to go here. Let me just see if that compiles. Yeah. All right, so to fill out this box, left, top, front, right, bottom, back. Exposition, left-hand side of the box. So the values for right, bottom, and back are each 1 pixel past the end of the pixels that are included in the region box. That is, values for left, top, front are included in the right region when the values for right, bottom, and back are excluded from the box region. For example, for a box that is 1 pixel wide, right minus left is 1. The box region includes the left pixel, but not the right pixel. Coordinates of box are in bytes for buffers and in texels for textures. Okay, so that means, okay, so that the boxes left should equal the textured mesh renderers vertex data used. And box.top is 0. Box.front is 0. Okay, so now the right is the left plus the vertex data size. And then box dot bottom, I believe, is just going to be 1, and box dot back is 1. I don't know. Does it have to be 1, or can they still be 0? I don't know. Let's try that and see if that works. All right, so now I gotta do the same thing for the indices here. Index buffer. Hey, D Priester 10, hope I said that right. I am making a video game right now, and it is kicking my butt. Okay, so this should be index data. Okay, so I need to redo this box here. Oops, I don't need to remake the whole box. Didn't just update the data inside of it. So this is going to be the index data used, and this will be the index data size. Index X. Yeah. Typing is hard. Okay, so that compiles. Doesn't do anything because I'm not even calling the function. Oh yeah, you know what I also need to do is I need to update. I need to actually increase that by however many. You know, I'm going to cross that bridge later. I'm going to test this now with just my cube and see if it works. I'm not very optimistic that it will, but let's give it a go. Textured mesh. I'll call this cube mesh equals create textured mesh. And then so I'm going to use my cube vertices. Oh yeah, there it is. Textured cube vertices. Normals. Size of that. Is that sure that's what I called it? Yeah. And let's do the same for the cube indices, and then that's going to be the size of my cube indices. Okay, must return a value. That would make sense, wouldn't it? Yeah. So let's make a textured mesh to actually return. Okay, so before I return it, I gotta update its stuff. So the mesh start, no, what do I call it? Index count. So I believe it's in indices, right? It's not in bytes. Like it's the actual count of indices. So I need to divide it by the size of a short. Actually, I'm confused. Okay. All right. So basically, my buffer has to keep track of how many indices, but I'm getting confused between the size and then the actual count of indices. So index count is, so this is going to be in data and size. So plus equals index data size, and then put the ray around here. Textured mesh renderer. Okay. Mesh index count And then I also need to update the mesh index offset. So mesh index offset is equal to no, this is the index count. Oh, okay, so wait, actually this should be the offset. And then the index count is the index data size divided by the size of U16. There we go. Missing semicolon, those help sometimes. Okay, I'm not getting any errors. Program runs. Create mesh. There it is. Okay, so that means my cube mesh is kind of sort of getting created. Let's set the... Okay, so let's move this down below all this commented stuff. Hopefully we'll get deleted before tonight is over. Yeah, so I want to put that down here because I want to now set the cube mesh's texture to texture. And then that reminds me, when I go to render my mesh, I need to bind the shader resource. I forgot the name of the function. PS, set shader resources. Start slot. Okay. So pixel shader set, what is it called again? Shader resources. It's going to take in the start slot, the number of views, and then the actual resource, which is going to be the mesh texture dot resource view. So it got to be the address of that. Yep. All right. And the other thing I need to do every time I render a mesh is update the constant buffer, or buffers, I should say. Another thing I'm going to do is another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to update, or I'm going to zero out the position. So that way it doesn't create it like way off screen or something like that. So I can just do 0. All right, what else? So position texture is being set. I should have some kind of default texture. We'll do that later. Okay, so now every time I'm rendering it, I need to update the vertex constants, pixel constants, and update that sub resource. Okay, what's wrong here? It's not a member of textured mesh render. Sure. Oh, it's just vertex const buffer. Yeah, that should also be vertex const buffer. No, I lied. Pixel const buffer. Still complaining. Cannot convert argument 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Does it need the address? Yes, it does. Okay, so now I actually need to calculate all this stuff here. Oh yeah, I should also take in a camera so that I know how to render this thing. Okay, so what are my... So that's easy. That's going to be taken basically from the mesh and the camera. So we'll say that the texture mesh render vertex constants dot mesh, is it mesh model matrix? What do I call it? Is I'm going to set that later in just a minute here. Constants dot. Okay, so camera matrix is just the camera's view, and then I am going to yeah, so I'm going to make a function here in my mathematics class that's going to turn a matrix I'm going to call this build model matrix, and it's going to take in a vector 3 for a position, a vector 3 for the scale, which I forgot to add to my textured mesh, and then a vector 3 for, or no, vector, no, a quaternion for the orientation. And so what we're going to do is make a matrix for, call this just mat, make it the identity matrix, and then we are going to say mat okay, so let's do this. Let's put this below here so that I can call my scale. So I'm going to scale this matrix by the scale. I need to translate the matrix. Do I have a translate function? I do. Should probably move this up. Okay, so we're going to translate that by the position. We're going to scale it, and then now I need to make another matrix for the rotation equals the rotation to quaternion, pass in, is it the address? Oh, hold on, sorry. There we go. That's what I want to do. Call that function. Turning into matrix 4, we're going to pass in the orientation. And then I want to return the product of mat1, or no, just mat times rotation. And I think that's not going to work because it doesn't know about the multiplication function. Oh, that's just for one value. Let's override that to take in a vector 3. nt.x, nt.y, nt.z. There we go. What are you talking about? Term does not evaluate to a function taking 2 arguments. Can I not do that? I'm going to take all the operators and put them. Oh, this is going to get ugly. Alright, starting to forward declare things here. Oh my goodness, that is ugly. Alright. Oh yeah, because I've been trying to use all this stuff before declaring all this other stuff here. All right, let's put all that here. We'll do the function forward declarations here. This is supposed to be code cleanup. It's more code uglify. All right, so now line 81's mad because it doesn't know about scale. And that would be because I probably will forward declare that too. Okay, now we're back to this thing. It's still upset because scale, it's saying does not take 2 arguments. What if I just change this to scale v3? Dot view must have a struct. Okay, so that fixed that. Yeah, I need to go back and clean this up again. Okay, so now 175 is upset because must have, oh yeah, because it's a camera's pointer. Okay, that compiled. Still got a window showing up, that's good. No. Okay, so, alright, that took way more time than I wanted it to, but I should be able to now build a model matrix by passing in the meshes position, meshes or scale, which it doesn't have yet, and then the mesh orientation. Oh. Oh, jeez. Oh my goodness. The fingers are too fat. There we go. There we go. All right. Dare I say, I think I am ready to test this. So I create my cube mesh, accept the texture. I'm also not doing anything with the lighting here. Oh yeah, I also need to, okay, so I'm not ready to test quite just quite yet. I need to do something. Okay, so I'm updating the vertex constant. So now textured mesh render pixel constants dot camera position is equal to the camera position. And then I'm going to I'm just going to set all that stuff here. Move this. It should. Let's see. Temporary. Okay. Pixel constants dot light position. All right, so now I am ready to test, and I am emotionally prepared to be disappointed. So here we go. Render textured mesh with my cube mesh. And the address of my camera. It compiles, it runs, but I don't see a cube. Where's my cube? Oh man. Okay. It's getting to be about time to set up my debugger. I'm going to say this is the culprit. Somewhere in here is my problem. No, no cube. Don't think I need that anymore. Don't need that anymore. Don't need that anymore. Okay, yeah, so that's probably okay. Yeah, I feel like this is all jacked up here. This is definitely not right. So let me do this. Because this is in bytes, I need to actually know how many indices there are. So if I say U32 total indices, that's going to be the index data size divided by the size of a short. So the index, mesh index count. That should be total indices, and then the index offset. Now, is that in bytes or is that? That's what I don't get. Index start location, the location of the first index read by the GPU from the index buffer. Yeah, let's assume that's okay. What I'm gonna do is ignore this stuff for now, and then actually, okay. So actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delete or comment that out for now. Oh, I never finished doing all this stuff. You know what? Let me back up. Let me back up. I never set the scale of my mesh. So if it's 0, then of course I'm not going to see it. So the scale should be 1. Oh man, I hope that was it. I hope it was something simple like that. Oh, where are you? Come on now. Mesh dot scale. Well, I was hoping. Wait, didn't I? Do something else. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna keep the mesh. So that already gets initialized, but I do definitely need to initialize those. Definitely setting the texture. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just comment all this out for now. And I'm going to say mesh dot index count is 36, and then mesh dot index offset is 0. I'm just going to hard code a bunch of stuff for now. So here, instead of doing this, I'm going to just go ahead and pass in the cube stuff. That's index buffer. Let's start here. So this is going to be the size of cube, textured cube vertices with normals. And then that's going to point to that. And then this will be the size of cube indices, and then that's going to point to the cube indices. So if I just hard code everything like I had, mesh undeclared identifier 160. And still nothing. Oh, this is so frustrating. I just want to see a cube again. I had one. Okay, so let's. Okay, good thing I kept all this commented out stuff here. Let me take a look at my shader and make sure I'm not forgetting something trivial. Okay, so I'm setting the shaders. I am setting the input layout. I am setting the vertex buffer. Fine. Index buffer. Probably should change that at some point. Setting the texture from the mesh. Building the matrix. That could possibly be wrong. Let's try reversing this. No. Translate by the position. Scale factor 3. Yeah, I don't know. It's got to be something dumb. I'm getting tired, and the more I look, the less likely I feel like I'm able to find it. I think I'm going to just wrap it up here. I hate to uh, finish with less progress than I started with, but I don't know, I think it's just a minor fix to get it working, and then it's just a little bit more cleanup from there. Then I can go back to working on the game, or actually start working on the game because I haven't even started that yet. I'm still trying to get the thing to render, but whatever. So let me go ahead and no, I'm not even going to save it to GitHub. I'll do that next time when I get it fixed. So thank you for joining me. I will wrap it up here and hopefully see you next time. Thank you.